So looking at this picture, you can identify a lot of things that are living, but you have to think, are there things that can't be seen with just your eyes? Um, a long time ago, they didn't realize that there were organisms that were microscopic and couldn't be seen. So it makes sense that the older scientists like Aristotle just had to group to divide out organisms into plant and animals. But now, knowing everything that we know of all the organisms that are in existence, we have three domains, or some people call them super kingdoms. There are archaea, eukarya, and bacteria. In this diagram, you can see domain bacteria right there. It is going to be made up of one kingdom. Domain archaea is made up of one kingdom. And then the domain eukarya has 4 kingdoms: Animalia, fungi, plants, and protists. And they are all grouped together in the domain eukarya because they are eukaryotic, which, let me remind you, that means it has a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. The domain archaea and bacteria do not have a nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. So we do have 6 kingdoms now. Used to be 5, now we use 6. Archaebacteria, eubacteria, protists, fungi, plant, and animal. So I'll be going through each one and identifying some of the main characteristics. So we'll start with the kingdom Animalia, which would include humans. They are eukaryotic cells and multicellular, so made up of many cells. We are the only kingdom that does not have a cell wall, only have a surrounding cell membrane. We are heterotrophic, which, remember, that means we have to eat food in order to get our nutrients. Most animals are mobile, except for things like the sponges and the hydra in the ocean, which cannot move around. We do reproduce sexually, and our role, we have carnivores, herbivores, filter feeders, which are going to basically filter nutrients out of water that flows through them. Detritus feeders, scavengers, and insectivores, and of course omnivores like us. We are the most complex kingdom. We do have organs and organ systems where no other kingdom has that. The plants are kingdom Plantae. They are also eukaryotic, so remember they have a nucleus. They are also multicellular. They do have a cell wall. Their cell walls are made of chloroplasts, and their cell walls are made of cellulose, and they also have chloroplasts, which makes them green. They are autotrophs, so they do make their own food. So that means their role in the ecosystem, they are producers. They are stationary, so they're not going to get up and walk around. And they do also reproduce sexually using spores, flowers, or cones. Kingdom fungi, always everyone's favorite. We have things like mushrooms, mildew, like you see on here on this leaf. They are eukaryotic. They are all multicellular except for yeast. Remember, we use yeast in things like baking. Yeast is unicellular, but everything else in this is multicellular. They do have a cell wall. Their cell wall is made up of chitin. Remember, we talked about chitin earlier this year. They are heterotrophic, so they are different from plants in the fact that they do have to get their nutrients from somewhere else. They do not make their own. Lots of times people think that mushrooms are plants, but they are not because they are not autotrophic. They are stationary, and they also reproduce sexually using spores. They are mostly decomposers that help recycle dead material into our environment, but there are some that are parasitic, and those things cause things like athlete's foot and ringworm. So if you ever had athlete's foot or ringworm, that means you did have a fungus. Then we have the protists, or kingdom Protista. This is kind of, people nickname it the catch-all kingdom or the junk drawer because you have a lot of different types of organisms that are eukaryotic. They don't fit into any of the other kingdoms, so they just kind of threw them all together in the protists. And some are animal-like, some are plant-like, and some are fungus-like. I'll give some examples. But they are all eukaryotic. Most of them are unicellular, but there are some multicellular ones. So you can see right here, Paramecium is unicellular. The amoeba is also unicellular. They may have a cell wall. Some have a cell wall. Some don't have a cell wall. Some have chloroplasts. Some don't have chloroplasts. It really all depends on the individual organism itself. So the ones that have chloroplasts are obviously going to be autotrophs, so they make their own food, and the ones that don't are going to be heterotrophs. Most of them are mobile by using cilia or flagella, or in the case of the amoeba, moving by pseudopod action. Reproduction, some of them reproduce asexually, some of them reproduce sexually. Some are photosynthetic producers, some are decomposers, and some are also disease-causing parasites. So a few examples, you don't have to add these to your notes. I just wanted to expand on them a little bit. This one right here, this is a euglena. It is an animal and plant-like protist. It moves using a flagellum, excuse me. It does have an eye spot to detect light, and it also has chloroplast, so it is an autotroph. Then we have some plant-like ones, so they are photosynthetic. Things like green algae, red algae, and diatoms. They are producers. They are classified according to their color pigments. And they're used to make products such as agar, this carrageenan, which is a thickener found in puddings, and alginates, which are actually found in ice cream. We have fungus-like protists, and those are going to be our decomposers, things like slime molds and water molds. They're made up of a mass called a protoplasm. Now, these do not have a cell wall in the early stages of their growth, and they're found in damp, shady areas. And then animal-like, again, we have a paramecium. You'll see that it is surrounded by cilia, and it will use that for movement. And it does have an oral groove right here, and that is a mouth-like opening for it to ingest materials. And then we also have the amoeba, which is heterotrophic and animal-like. It moves using pseudopods, and that's it will also engulf food through vacuoles. And a lot of these actually do cause diseases. So then bacteria. Bacteria refers to anything that is prokaryotic. We used to classify all the bacteria together in one kingdom called Monera, but now that we know a lot more about the DNA of Archaebacteria and Eubacteria, they have split them up into different kingdoms. So bacteria in general will always be prokaryotic, so they do not have a nucleus. They are all unicellular. They all have a cell wall. Some are heterotrophs, some are autotrophs. They are stationary. They do not swim around on their own. They reproduce by binary fission, and some of them are producers by undergoing photosynthesis. Some are decomposers, and some of them are disease-causing. So we have Archaebacteria. These are the ancient bacteria, or the oldest bacteria on Earth. They live in extremely harsh environments, so they're going to be called extremophiles, which is why they would have survived on Earth first, because it was a very extreme environment. Alright, so Archaebacteria, definitely all prokaryotic. They are unicellular. They have cell walls that do not have peptidoglycan. So that is going to be the big difference between Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. Some are heterotrophs, some are autotrophs. They'll be autotrophs if they actually, are making their own foods. Some are stationary. There are some that are mobile. They reproduce by binary fission, and they're going to be found in areas like salt marshes. Those are called halophiles. Volcanoes, which we call thermophiles, or hot springs. Oh, we'll go back to that. And then some people think that if they're looking for life outside of Earth, they would actually be looking for archaebacteria because they would have to be able to survive in a very extreme environment. And then we have eubacteria. And eubacteria, you can see over here some different types. We have E. coli, streptococcus, or you've had strep throat. These are the true bacteria because this is what we're going to see all around us. Those extremophiles are going to live in extreme places on the planet. So they are prokaryotic, unicellular as well. So the difference with them is that they actually have peptidoglycan in their cell walls. Nutrition, some are heterotrophs or autotrophs. They are stationary or mobile. But they do also reproduce asexually by binary fission. They live in the soil, air, food, inside organisms. Inside humans, we have bacteria within our intestine. And they're producers, decomposers, and definitely some are disease-causing. So eubacteria can be harmful. So these are going to be your parasites that cause disease. But what most people don't know is that most bacteria in existence is actually helpful. Some of them are nitrogen fixing, so they help recycle nutrients. Some of them are photosynthetic, and so they create oxygen for the planet. We have different types of E. coli that help organisms' digestion. This would include humans. You have E. coli in your intestines that are going to help you to process the nutrients out of your food. Some are used to make foods like cheese, yogurt, pickles, and bread. And then some are used to genetically engineer medicines and other products like we talked about in our genetic engineering unit, such as making insulin and other medicines. This just shows some examples. And that's where we'll stop. Find this out there.